The large Merriam-Webster's dictionary gives the definition of Halloween, spelled Halloween, as the evening preceding All Saints' Day, the eve of October 31st. In many countries, Halloween is traditionally devoted to merrymaking, with playful ceremonies and charms to discover future husbands and wives. Nothing more. It is not unwarrantable to predict that the time is not far distant when a world of more enlightened intelligence will be able to look back upon the present age, particularly in the Western area of civilization, and label it as the epoch in which the people celebrated a series of religious festivals around the cycle of the year in nearly total ignorance of their true significance. Certainly, whether or not this be the future's judgment on our present state of semantic nescience, it is to be presumed that if the departed souls of the sages of antiquity are in any wise in position to gaze down the corridors of history from their day to ours, they must register uncomprehending dismay at the sight of our ghastly misconception and utterly travestied motives in our commemoration of the great annual festivals their dramatic genius instituted round the year. While the divagation from the basic meaning is egregious in every instance, it has perhaps swung most outrageously far from prime character in the case of our Halloween observance, falling annually on the night of October 31st. So profoundly is this true that one risks little impossible misstatement in venturing the assertion that none of the millions of revelers on that riotous night has the faintest real idea of the significance of his carousal, or any idea that approaches within a country mile of the original intent of the occasion. It is quite doubtful if 1 in 10,000 even ventures a random guess as to why he goes out in the street of town or village in grotesque disguise. He does it from the sheer force of custom. He hardly bothers even to wonder why, because he knows nobody is going to ask him about it. The meaning does not concern him, because society for ages has ordained it that way, and it comes with the force and sanction of something established under the unchallengeable authority of immemorial custom. If there is perhaps a mite of idle curiosity about it, his wonder is fully satisfied by the reflection that somewhere away, the festival, it might be said, carries 1/4 of the symbolic representation of human life as depicted in the great zodiacal figure or graph devised by the sapient genius of ancient sages. The zodiac, from the Greek word zodion, a little animal, was a semantic diagram of amazing ingenuity and comprehensiveness, to portray the successive stages and salient features of man's evolution in the scale of expanding being. A basic 12 steps in progress, or 12 segments of an eventually complete divinization of his nature, were the integral divisions of the graph. But as these 12 were to be generated as the outcome of a trinitarian subdivision of each of 4 grades or levels of the human consciousness, namely sensation, emotion, thought and spiritual genius, the 12 differentiations were clustered in 4 groups of 3 members each, cutting the zodiacal circle of houses into the 4 quadrants. The boundaries were the lines cutting the circle at the 2 solstices, and the 2 equinoxes, giving us the equal armed cross in the circle. The yearly dates of these points were the 21st, or 22nd, of June, summer solstice, of September, autumn equinox, of December, winter solstice, and of March, spring equinox. What has been largely lost out of present astrological study is the fact that the zodiac was to serve as a pictorial or semantic representation of the evolution of man's divine soul as it swung round the repeated cycles of life in many incarnations on the earth. If his evolution was to be consummated by the development and final unification of the 12 composite facets of divine faculty through the total experience acquired in the run of the cycles, the process involved the generation of the 4 grades of consciousness, each in threefold organization. What the blueprint indicated then at the 4 corners of the zodiac was the generation successively of sensation, the first grade or form of consciousness, at the September point, of emotion at the December point, of mind at March, and of spirit grade at the consummation of the round at June. Since the little sun of fiery conscious potential in man was of kindred essence with the conscious power behind the sun itself, its cycle of rotation was made in copy of the solar orb's annual round. As the design was intended to register it, the soul was conceived in germinal state at the June station, was integrated in a material organism at the September date, was quickened to life after virtual death under the incubus of body at December, and was raised to a new growth in a fresh cycle beginning at March, under Easter symbolism. September 21st, then, marks the date at which in the significance of zodiacal language the unit of fiery spiritual essence, an emanation of creative mind from the supreme deity which is to be the divine soul of man, descending from the heights of nominal activity toward manifestation in matter, crosses the line from pure mind force into union with a grade of matter that, being attuned to its vibration, it can mold into an instrument of expression of its potential capabilities of life and consciousness. In more concise form of statement, it there enters embodiment in physical forms, it incarnates. The fundamental import of a great religious ceremonial set for the autumn of the year would be involved in the meaning that goes with the core doctrine of the incarnation. Halloween is par excellence the ritualization of the incarnation. But it will be remonstrated, Halloween does not fall on September 21st or reasonably near it. It comes 40 days after that date. How can it be relevant to the import of September 21st? The interval of the 40 days between the fall equinox and October 31st holds the answer to the question. The number 40 is, as any Bible reader will know, almost omnipresent in the scriptures. It occurs 64 times in the Old Testament. Along with 7, 10 and 12, it is one of the basic numerological keys to the recondite meaning, and the cryptic methodology of Bible writing. From certain fundamental data in the realm of nature it had come in the ancient days, in the esoteric language of symbolism, to connote the period of time that the egg, or seed of life, was immersed or incubated in matter before hatching or germinating to make the start of a new cycle. A seed has to go into the ground and die in order to generate a new living organism for a new cycle of life. 40 days were calculated as the time the wheat grains, sown in the waters standing over the fields at the inundation of the Nile River would take to germinate. The human embryo is gestated in mother body in 40 weeks. 40 was therefore the number symbol of the interval of death of the germ of new life when incubated in matter. It was the symbol of the dark interval preceding the dawn of a new life cycle. It was therefore used in semantic science to intimate the involvement of soul or spirit in material embodiment, and thus came to represent the whole life cycle itself. For a cycle, or at any rate the manifest arc of it, is just that period in which soul entity is involved in matter. It would dramatize the whole duration of any cycle of birth, growth, maturation, decay and death, the entire span from birth to death. The ancient genius for festival ordination succeeded in introducing at least 4 periods of 40 days into the round of the year. Taking the interval between September 21st and October 31st as the first of these, a second one is the period between Christmas on December 25th and February 2nd, the ancient Candlemas Day, or the festival of the purification of the Virgin from the corruption of a mortal birth. The third dates from 40 days before Easter to Easter morn, the Christian Lent. A fourth runs from Easter, taken as the spring equinox date of March 21st, to the 1st of May, which latter date was of great prominence throughout all ancient traditional ritualism. It is probable that several other periods running from the 1st of a month to the 10th of the next month were taken as festival epochs. The Holy Night or Hallowed Even was therefore set for the 40th day following the autumn equinox, with the signification that the soul entered incarnation, Latin carnal means flesh, on September 21st, ran its cycle of evolution over its 40 days of incubation or embodiment in the soil of human life, and on October 31st culminated its progress at the end in its final glorification in the hallowed state of incipient godhood. It entered the cycle as the soul of a mortal human being and emerged at the end in the blessed ranks of the gods. The 40 days typified the entire cycle. The 31st of October virtually symbolizes, therefore, in a smaller cycle the same meaning that Easter dramatizes in a cycle of 6 months, starting at September 21st, or what Easter symbolizes at the end of Lent. The soul in both cycles comes to its beatification at the 40 days end. Halloween has also been designated in some traditions as the All Fools' Night. The connection of this denomination with the ceremonial is involved in a measure of obscurity. Yet there is a specific significance in what the word fool connotes in reference to the soul's incarnation. For we have other indications of it in the medieval personage, the jester or court fool in every baron's castle, as well as in the odd fact that the number I card in the symbolic collection called the tarot cards is designated the fool. Also we have the poet's observation that all human life is marked with folly, what fools we mortals be. So the term obviously carries some intimation of deeper import. It must be seen to have a measure of esoteric reference in the reflection that the soul, when in bodily incarnation, is cut off from the full light of truth and wisdom, and therefore lives under the dominion of demoniac powers, which, as presented so clearly in the allegory of Job's divinely sanctioned tormenting at the hands of the imps of darkness and evil, are given tutelary control over the infant deity in man during its incubation and incipient stages of growth. St. Paul elucidates this idea in the 4th chapter of his Epistle to the Galatians, saying that as long as the soul is in the unawakened state of its childhood, corresponding to the ungerminated state of the seed, it is under the supervision of tutors and guardians and in servitude to the elements, indeed in several passages elementals, of the earth and the air, though it is at the same time, potentially, Lord of all.